Okay, looks like we're good to go. We're recording, and I think everybody's in from the waiting room, and Miranda will keep admitting as we need. So, welcome to the Evergreen Employment Provider Training Session. My name is Leslie Miska, and I am the Office of Aging and Disability Services Information Services Manager, and I'll be leading today's training session. Next slide, please, Miranda. During today's training session, we will cover the following topics: an introduction to Evergreen, the employment data form, and the employment data form queries. Next slide, please, Miranda. Prior to this training, you should have watched the Evergreen microlearning videos. If you have not had a chance to do that yet, that's okay. You can certainly go back and do that after this training. Those microlearning videos are available on our Evergreen project website at maine.gov/DHHS/EIS/Evergreen. And these short video clips provide training on the following topics: search, which is an introduction to Evergreen and the search process and how to access person records, staff records, locations, and organizations. The dashboards, which there are two dashboards in Evergreen. One is for the system user, which is you, and the other is for each of the person records. They have their own dashboard. The next topic is the person record itself. This is where all of the demographic and personal information about each person is collected, captured, and maintained. And then in addition to the person record, there's a microlearning on the health information section, which captures all of the diagnoses, medications, allergies, treatments, health insurance. And then there's also one on queries and notifications. We will discuss your employment provider employment data form queries today, but there is a generic training on queries and notifications. So you'll definitely want to listen to that. These are tools that will help you manage your outstanding work and actions that you need to take in the system. And then there's one on progress notes. If your role offers the ability to create progress notes, then that recording will teach you how to do that. And then there's one on attachments, which is how you can upload additional important supplemental documents to the Evergreen person record. Please note that we will not be covering all of the information in these microlearning videos during today's presentation. So if you haven't had a chance to review them, you definitely want to do that. Or if you did review them and you want to have a refresher, you can certainly go back and listen to those as many times as you'd like. Next slide, please, Miranda. Participants have been added to the training session in listener mode, therefore your line is muted. We do ask that we do want to hear your questions though, so we ask that you type those into the Q&A using the Q&A icon on your Zoom window. It looks like what's pictured in the center of the screen here with the red arrow pointing at it. If you don't see it on your Zoom menu, it might be hidden under the More with the three dots, that little ellipsis. But you should have a Q&A icon, and you can type your questions in there throughout the presentation, and I will answer as many of them as I can in the time that remains after I get through the slides. If for some reason I'm not able to get through all of the questions live, we certainly will respond to questions through our frequently asked questions on our project website. Next slide, please, Miranda. It's important to share that Evergreen, or to convey that Evergreen is a shared system. It does have two different sections of the system. One is for our adult protective services programs, and they collect adult protective services reports, or APS reports, in that side of the system. And then the other side is referred to as Evergreen, or the person record. And that's where we're going to focus our training today, is on the Evergreen side of the house. This is where all of our EIS functionality will live. However, it's important to discuss this because the Evergreen person record is what contains all of the relevant person details, like the demographics, identifiers such as a number, social security number, health information, etc. And because it's a shared system, our adult protective services and public guardianship conservatorship staff will also have access to view and edit the data that's captured at the person record level. Next slide, please, Miranda. Some of the benefits of Evergreen include a whole self-service section. It's called the Help Center, and there are features in addition to the Help Center for resetting your own password. Very exciting. You don't need to reach out to our team anymore. You can just reset your own password if you forget it. And then there are system-generated notifications. There are role-specific queries that you can run, and we're going to look at those that are related to the employment data form today. These queries will again show you your outstanding work or actionable items that you might need to take in the system. There's an enhanced person record with centralized data capture. This is where we capture, again, all of that demographic stuff. We capture history items under the 8 Charting the Life course domains that are used to inform our person-centered planning process. This is also where we capture all that health information and alerts and things like that. There's a display of common data within forms rather than requiring recapture of it. So if a form needs to display the guardianship status or the person's date of birth or living arrangements or address information, rather than having you recapture that from form to form, we will just automatically display that as it's being captured and maintained at the person record level. We're able to do that. Also, there's standardized data capture. So for example, we have certain fields that are required. There are validations on certain field at the field level. So if it's like a date field, it will ensure the proper format. If it's a numeric only field, it will ensure that you're only entering new numbers instead of alpha and numeric characters. And there are also like workflows and business rules in most of the forms to help standardize the way that we capture data for more consistent reporting. Next slide, please, Miranda. My dashboard is the first page that you'll see when you log in. This is your personal user or staff member dashboard, and it will be what's displayed here will be dependent on your role. Everybody does have the white persistent top level navigation. Again, based on your role, you may or may not have different labels for areas of the site that you have access to. When I took this screenshot, I was logged in as an employment provider role. So this is what the employment provider role would see. You do have a search feature in the upper left of that bar, and then messages, queries, reports. Your help center is there in your profile to the far right. And then under that persistent navigation is your dashboard. And there are 3 tiles for the employment provider. The one to the far left is the announcements tile, and it's got an orange background, and every user of the system will have this tile. This is a tile that's managed by our vendor, FEI Systems, and my team can request notices to be put up there, or they can put notices up there for things like scheduled system outages, office closures, things like that, anything that every system user might need to be aware of. The center tile here is the messages tile. You can think of messages as a similar function to email, but instead of having to use your email, you can use messages inside of Evergreen, and it will keep all of your communications related to persons that you're serving in the system and activities that you're doing in the system within Evergreen. And you can use this to communicate with other system users, such as the employment data specialist or an assigned case manager or care coordinator. And then the tile to the far right is called My Notes. And this is similar to like a sticky notes or notepad, if you've ever used that on like your smartphone device, your tablet, maybe even your laptop. It's a way to just quickly capture a note title and some note content. So if you receive a call and you're in the middle of something, you can start capturing a My Note really quickly, and the My Notes will save at your in your profile, your staff profile. And if your role allows you to create progress notes, then you can later promote that note to a progress note against a particular person record. Next slide, please, Miranda. The employment data form captures data around a person's employment in the past quarter. This form is completed by providers for persons who are receiving employment-related services or were employed in the last quarter but did not receive any services for employment. The data captured in this form enables ODES to analyze information around numbers of persons employed, hours of employment, businesses that employed these individuals, and transportation used, if any, for employment. The form is completed every quarter and captures information for the previous quarter. The quarters are based off the calendar year, and a notification will be sent by the system every quarter reminding you to submit the form for the previous quarter. Notifications will be sent on January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st, and forms should be completed by the 15th of that month. For example, a notification will be sent on April 1st, reminding you to fill out the form for the months of January through March, and you should submit that by April 15th. Next slide, please, Miranda. To create an employment data form, you should navigate to the person record for which the form needs to be filled out. You'll click on the Forms and Plans icon in the primary navigation, which is the green menu on the left-hand side of the screen. I've circled the Forms and Plans icon in red, and the background appears white because I was clicked into that page when I took this screenshot. When you click into the Forms and Plans list page, you will see what's grayed out behind the pop-up window here in the front. That's called the All Forms list page. And you'll use the plus new form button in the upper left-hand corner of that content area to create a new form. And in this case, we're going to be creating an employment data form. So once you click that plus new form, it will pop up this modal that you're seeing in the center of the screenshot, and it will ask you to select a category in the form. You'll choose case/care plans and forms, and then you'll choose the form of employment data. And then you'll click next to move through to the second step of the modal. Next slide, please, Miranda. Upon clicking next, you will be presented with a yes or no question about whether the person worked during the previous quarter. If the answer is no, then a conditional question will display and require you to select a reason from the pick list provided. Choices for a reason that the person was not employed might include, or the choices include, under VR services, division of blind and visually impaired, no work available, out with illness, vacation/personal time, fired/laid off, transportation unavailable, or person quit. The system will auto-populate the organization with that of the logged in user who creates the form. After answering the question or questions, if you choose no, you'll click Save to move to step 2, where you'll confirm that you want to create the form. Next slide, please, Miranda. Upon creating the form, the system will navigate you into the employment data form. Like other forms, the employment data form will be in a status of in progress. The completion requirements will display an orange dotted circle indicating that the required fields for submission have not yet been populated because you just created the form. All sections of the form will be collapsed by default, and you can either expand all using the icon that's available in the top form menu, or you can manually open them one at a time using the caret to the left, the caret icon to the left of the section labels. You can also open your quick scroll menu to the right using the toggle, and you can either scroll to get each section, or you can use that quick scroll. And in this case, the employment data form has 2 sections, overview and job details. Miranda's showing you that with the pointer right now. And so you could click on either one of these and it will automatically navigate you to that section without having to scroll. The overview section of the form is one of those areas where it's pre-filled for you. You don't have to enter any additional information. It's going to pre-fill with the answers that you populated in the stepper. So the only section that you actually need to fill out is the job details section. When you first create the form, the section is going to have just a multi-add list button, which is that green button on the bottom left that I circled in red. It's kind of grayed out in the background. Thank you, Miranda. And it says plus add job details. You'll click this button and it will pop up this Add Job Details modal that you're seeing in the center of the screen here. This multi-add list will allow you to add as many jobs as the person had within that quarter. So when it pops up the modal, you'll enter the information for the first job. Excuse me. Here you'll be required to select a business name from the list of nearly 690 business names that are available to select from. Then you will select the business contact or the employer contact, which should have been added to the person record contact list before you create the form. If it has not previously been added there, then there will be no option, or that option may not exist in the dropdown. If that's the case, you can navigate back out, add that contact, and then come back to your form and finish it. Upon selecting the appropriate contact, and it's only going to display for you contacts that have a type of employer. So you'll only receive the appropriate contacts to pick from. In this example, I selected a contact that had the first name of test and the last name of employer, and the organization was a Mottos, and that was on my person record, a contact on my person record. And the organization is indicated in the parentheses. The system concatenates that for you into that one field. And then the system auto-populated the organization just below that as well for you, in case the organization hasn't been added at the contact level. After that, you will be required to answer a yes or no question about whether the business is located in Maine. If the answer is yes, you will be required to select a town from the dropdown, and that's a dropdown of all the towns in Maine. Then you'll provide the hourly wage and the total hours worked for the quarter for this job. Next, you will select all of the benefits that the person received at this job. The full list of choices is shown in the zoomed box with the thick black border at the bottom right of the screen. As you can see, there are also choices for other and none in the benefits question. If other is selected, you will be required to provide a description of the other benefit, and you can only select none apply if no other option has been checked. You can kind of tell in that screenshot that none apply looks a little bit lighter gray. That's because I had selected paid vacation and paid sick. So the system is not going to let me pick none apply. In order to pick none apply at this point, I would have to unselect all of my other options. Next slide, please, Miranda. There is a yes/no question about whether the business is owned by the agency providing the employment services, and then a single select pick list for the primary method of transportation. I've included the list of transportation choices in the zoomed in box with the thick black border. And those choices include walks, drive self, family and friends transport, bicycle, net, NMT, state contract, waiver provider, public transportation, taxi, carpooling, supported employment agency, work from home, and other. After you've chosen the method of transportation, the person, it will ask if the person has after that, if the person has any active prior authorizations for work supports and or employment specialist, you will be required to enter the hours billed for each of those in the last quarter. In this case, my person record did not have those, so you're not seeing those fields. But if those prior authorizations existed, then there would be 2 fields between the primary method of transportation and the date range. Then you'll provide the date range that the person worked at the job. And if the person is still employed there, a start date should be entered and the end date can be left blank with the current checkbox checked, like in my example here. If the person is no longer employed there, then both the start date and end date should be entered. If the exact dates are not known, then the closest dates should be entered and the approximate checkbox should be checked, indicating that they're not exact. Next, you will be required to indicate whether the job placement is individual or group. and provide the person's title and a description of their job duties before saving and adding another job if the person was employed by more than one business within the quarter. Next slide, please, Miranda. Once all the job details have been added for one or many jobs, however many the person held in that quarter, your completion requirements will display a green check mark like the one pictured in the screenshot that's circled in the center of the screenshot at the top. To complete the employment data form, you will click on the status dropdown and select the complete option, which I've circled inside of that status dropdown. The close option should only be used if the form was created in error and the form should truly be closed out and not submitted. Next slide, please, Miranda. I am going to now steal the screen share from Miranda, and I'm going to log in and show you how to navigate to the person record, and I'll show you where the employment status is found and the employer contact, and then we'll create a form, an employment data form. I am in a test environment, so please bear with me. Hopefully we don't bump up against any challenges here. That's always the tricky part of demoing from a test environment. There we go. So I've done my search. I put in my keywords of Leslie Test, and it's navigated me to the person record for Leslie Test. And over here on the left menu, I can find the record. And once inside of the record, I can use my toggle on the right-hand side of the screen here to see all the sections of the person record that I have access to. And then I can go to the education and employment section. And here, it will bring me right to the education and employment section. I can see that the status for Leslie Test is that I'm part-time employed. And if there was any notes, it also shares that here. So anybody that has an employment status of part-time or full-time does need one of these forms filled out. And then to see where your contacts exist, they're right below that. And I see I clicked on that, it brought that to the very top here for me. And I can see in here based on the relationship. The relationship, yeah, right here, that this is my employer. So the employer record is Test Employer, the source is Evergreen, the organization is Amatos, and my effective date range was November 24th, 2023. There is no date, no end date, meaning that this is an active contact. And my relationship, their relationship to Leslie Test is employer. And then to create the form, you would actually click on this Forms and Plans icon. And this is the All Forms list page. And you click this little plus new form button here. You would select your case care plans and forms. You'd select your employment data form, hit next, indicate whether the person did or did not. So if you say no, and then you have to give one of these reasons. We'll just do this. And then it brings you into your form. And here are all of your sections. You can expand all. It will show you information there. You can add job details, and then you can set it to complete whenever you're ready. And I'm going to stop sharing and let Miranda give us the slides back. Excellent. Thank you, Miranda. So the Employment data queries are used to track outstanding tasks and actions. Next slide, please, Miranda. Queries are accessed by clicking on the queries in the top white persistent navigation menu. I've circled that in red up there. It's in between messages and reports. So you'll click on that. It will bring you to the screen that you see in the center of the screenshot here, which is the queries page, list page, landing page. And you'll click on the little filter icon in the upper right, and it will show you all of the queries that you have access to. So for employment provider, it's the person assignments, caseload at my location, and the employment data form queries. There's an in progress query and a currently working no work support query. The in progress query will return results for forms which have been created but have not yet been completed. So for example, I just created that employment data form. If I went and ran the query right now, that one would show up because I've not set the status to complete yet. The currently working no work support will return results for persons who have an employment status of part-time or full-time on their person record, or the answer to is the individual employed on their active comprehensive assessment was yes, and the person does not have an active prior authorization for work supports. In this example, I ran the currently working no work support query, which returned 64 results. The query results can also be exported if needed for further analysis. Next slide, please, Miranda. So what's next? The next steps are really to practice and familiarize yourself with the system, and you'll do that by accessing the training sandbox. We will be sending out logins for the training sandbox within the next week and a half or so. There are 2,700 end users that we need to assign test accounts to. So there's a little bit of coordination that needs to occur there. So please bear with us, but we would definitely get those out to you by the end of next week at the very latest. In the meantime, you can go to our website at maine.gov/DHHS/EIS/evergreen, and you can rewatch the informational webinars. You can watch or rewatch the microlearning videos. You can watch recorded training sessions that are getting posted up there. So we are posting all of the recordings from all of our training sessions. Usually it takes a couple of days to get those up there after the session was held, but we are getting those posted. And then we also have a section with frequently asked questions. You can read through the questions that have been asked and the answers that have been provided to those to date. And we are continually updating that with frequently asked questions from all of the different training sessions and questions that are coming in through our email box. And in addition to reviewing all the materials that are out there while you're waiting for your training environment access, you can also try to tie up any loose ends that you might have in EIS if your role also allows you to enter reportable events or progress notes or anything like that. Definitely want to try to get those all wrapped up and in a complete state by 5 p.m. on Friday, January 12th, 2024. That's when our deploy will begin, and the EIS system will go into a read-only mode, and you won't be able to edit anything in that system anymore so that we can migrate the data successfully into Evergreen. You can also, at any time after this presentation and throughout until the deploy, you can email questions to us at evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. And Nancy Kitchen is helping me monitor that box, and we'll make sure that we respond to your questions. Next slide, please, Miranda. And I actually see that we do have a few questions in the Q&A already, so I'll certainly respond to those. If anybody has any other questions right now as well, please feel free to go ahead and use the Q&A to type questions in, and I will respond to those in the 30 minutes that we have remaining. And I'll also point out that Miranda was gracious to put our project website and the link to the microlearnings. Thank you, Miranda, right in our meeting chat. So if you want to grab that. And it looks like maybe we got a question in the chat as well, so I'll respond to that one first. I got one there. Um, from Adam asking whether the employment data form is completed by the case manager or the work support provider. So if the person is receiving work supports, it will be filled out by the work support provider. But if the person is not receiving work supports, then it will be filled out by the case manager or the care coordinator. Heidi asks, when a case manager does a 90-day review, is this something we will have to verify? Oh, great question, Heidi. Yes, case managers, I believe, do have access to review the employment data form. Also, though, the comprehensive assessment, Heidi, will, as a case manager, you will answer the question of whether the person is employed. So that will be available to view right within your person-centered plan as well. So when you do your 90-day reviews, you'll see that. There's also a question from Sahidi. We are in the process of being HCBS certified. I have been working on employment data sheets to keep track of all of my person's employment status. Is this something a community and in-home support program responsible for keeping track of in Evergreen? Great question. So it's my understanding again that work support providers are required to fill the form if the individual is receiving work supports. If the individual is employed but not receiving work supports, it's my understanding that the case manager or care coordinator should fill out the employment form. And as far as a requirement for which providers need to track this data, I actually do not know the explicit answer to that question. So don't feel super comfortable responding to that. So I will take that back to business and see if we can get an answer to that for you and get it posted out on our website. Jenny asks, do both the CCM and service provider get the reminders to update the form? Great question, Jenny. So if there is an assigned work support provider, they will get the notification. If there is not an assigned work support provider, the case manager or care coordinator will get the notification. So the system is smart enough to be able to tell who to send the notification to. Lisa asks, we have a number of older people we serve who have opted to be retired. Will these employment data forms need to be completed each quarter for folks in that category? Good question, Lisa. I am not sure what the answer is for that. I do not believe they need to, but I don't feel comfortable giving you a definitive answer on that. So we'll certainly make sure that we get the correct answer posted in our frequently asked questions as well. Carrie asks, are case managers responsible for completing this form if the individual does not receive waiver paid work support? Yes, that's my understanding, Carrie, is that case managers and or care coordinators should be filling this out for people that are employed and not receiving waiver paid work support. Kelsey asks, if we are providing work support and employment specialist services, will we need to fill out separate forms, or are we able to fill out one form for both services? One form for both services, Kelsey. And if they're receiving both services, when you add the job details, you'll see a field for each of those services, and you'll provide the hours that they received for each service separately, but in the same form. Megan asks, is the form only people working or all of our clients? Yeah, that's a great question, Megan. It's my understanding again that it's only for clients that are working. So working with waiver paid supports or not receiving waiver paid work supports. But we'll make sure that that's the actual correct answer, especially with the retired question. That one was a really good question. So we'll get a good answer posted for you guys around that. And Kevin asks, will the case manager get feedback from DHHS if we forget some area of the form? Yeah, good question, Kevin. So if you like create the form and you don't finish the form, the only feedback that you might get is if our employment specialist team, which I suspect that they will, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that our employment specialist team will be analyzing the data. And so they may reach out to you and say, hey, we noticed that you didn't submit a form here. And when we ran the query, it looks like it's still in progress. But as far as like the system goes, there's no past due reminder or anything like that. So we'll certainly check with our employment team and see if there's some sort of feedback for you. But a way that you can monitor that yourself is by going to that query and running that first query for the in progress to see if there are any that are sitting in your queue that you started that are still in progress, and then you can finish those. In order to complete the form, the system will determine if you've populated all the right information. It is not intelligent enough to know how many different jobs the person holds. So you would need to know how many jobs need to be added. And once you've added one job and all the required fields for the job, the form, the system and the form consider it complete. So it would allow you to complete it without putting all the jobs on there. So you want to make sure that you get all of them added before you set it to complete. It does look like that's all the questions that I have in the Q&A at this time. It looks like Adam also asked in the chat, what about career planning? Is an employment data form required? Good question, Adam. I don't know the answer to that, so we'll definitely take that one back. I'm only aware of the other two services that I mentioned, so I'm not sure on career planning. Will the employment data form replace the service implementation plan? No, the service implementation plan, the SIP, is a separate form and will still need to be completed by the employment provider as part of the person-centered planning process. So these are two separate forms. Great questions. And it looks like that's all I do have for questions. Again, though, reminder, if you have any other questions, if you think of anything after this presentation adjourns, you can certainly email those questions to us at evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov, and we would be happy to go ahead and respond to those and make sure that you get all of your questions answered. And we will post the recording from this training as well as the questions and answers, the ones that I gave live, plus ones that I didn't have answers to on our website in the coming days. So definitely keep taking a peek at our frequently asked questions list. That will continue to grow as we go through more trainings. And make sure that you're signed up for your other technical training sessions that apply to your role, if there are any. And there are some business process training sessions also posted out on our website as well. And also share the news with your colleagues, making sure that they're all aware and everybody gets all the training that they need. And keep your eyes open for your email with your training environment login. I want to thank all of you for joining me this afternoon. It was a pleasure sharing some information with you about the employment data form, and we look forward to working with you when you get into Evergreen.